In this video, we'll give you the top 4 teams to stack in fantasy football contests 2024 redraft leagues. I'm Jim Coventry along with Anthony Servino of RotoWire.
Jim, my first favorite NFL team to stack for 2024 redraft fantasy football is the Kansas City Chiefs. And I get it, in years past, the Chiefs were normally expensive, but that is not the case. When you look at the core players like Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and even Rashee Rice, these players are going cheaper for one reason or another. We know that quarterbacks with higher rushing floors, higher than Patrick Mahomes at least, they're going ahead of him. We know that people are kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out on Travis Kelce. His ADP is around sometimes 2 rounds, depending on who you're drafting with, cheaper than it was in years past. And of course, Rashee Rice, earlier this offseason with the 2nd or 3rd round ADP, that has since plummeted with all of the news of a possible suspension. Now, we add in other supporting players like Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown. They are also factored in the mix into suppressing costs of Kelce and also Rashee Rice. And then, of course, we have Isaiah Pacheco. This Chiefs team, who are coming off of a fairly bad season. I say bad season. This team won the Super Bowl, but that was a bad season offensively, considering what we're used to from Kansas City and their fantasy football output. The Kansas City Chiefs are my number 1 team to stack while they're still at a value. And my favorite stack is Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and coming back quite a few rounds later and getting Rashee Rice.
My first team to stack in fantasy football contest is the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray, full year removed from the ACL. And remember, the injury history, that ACL in 22, it cost him both 2022, half a season, and 2023. So it was 1 injury, 2 years. He hasn't been an injury-prone quarterback. Yet Kyler Murray is going as the quarterback 7. Last year in 8 starts, Murray had between 18.5 and 25 fantasy points, and that was with very little weaponry. Drew Petzing, the offensive coordinator, had done an excellent job all year helping the Cardinals play well beyond their skill level. But now we get back to the skill personnel around Kyler Murray and his good coaching. James Conner had the most efficient year of his career last year. He's going off the board as the running back 20. We know he'll miss a few games. Running backs miss time. Deal with it. But Conner is playing at a high level. In that receiver now. Last year, not much. Marvin Harrison. Now, Harrison's going up the board as a wide receiver 10. That's a little bit rich. Maybe he cashes there, but that may not be the optimal stacking route. Michael Wilson is wide receiver 76. The fantasy world is sleeping on Wilson. I want you to know that Michael Wilson, in his first 8 games, we had some Joshua Dobbs, we had some Clayton Tune. In 5 of those 8 games, Michael Wilson had at least 56 yards. Think about how solid that is for a rookie. And then the last 2 games after he was recovered from an injury, playing with Kyler Murray, averaging 5 catches and 65 yards. Wilson is a very good player. Having Harrison will help. And then Trey McBride, breakout tight end of last year, didn't get much time in the first 5 weeks, 825 yards in the season, playing really about 12 games for the most part. And then the offensive line, it was adequate last year. Usually it's a train wreck. The defense should be terrible in Arizona. They're going to have to score. So overall, my favorite affordable stack, and I say affordable, Kyler Murray, James Conner, and then Michael Wilson. Now, if you enjoy videos like this, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the RotoWire Fantasy Football channel on YouTube. Also, check out all of our fantasy football content and rankings by getting a free 2-day trial, no credit card needed. Just go to rotowire.com/Jim to see all of our content.
Jim, my next must-stack team for 2024 redraft fantasy football, the Atlanta Falcons, and I am all in on the Atlanta Falcons. If you listen to our shows, you know I gush about the Falcons anytime that I can. We cue in Zach Robinson and Kirk Cousins, 2 of the biggest offseason additions. Also, from the player personnel standpoint at wide receiver, Darnell Mooney on Rondale Moore. This team is absolutely loaded. Now, in terms of price point, Kirk Cousins right now is the 19th quarterback off the board. He is one of the best quarterbacks and one of the cheapest quarterbacks at a value right now, because Kirk Cousins, we know when he's clicking and firing all on all cylinders and in the right system, he has back end quarterback one upside, and his ceiling would be even higher. But we know Kirk Cousins does not bring any rushing ability to the table, which kind of suppresses that ceiling. Now, with Bijan Robinson, we know we have to pay up for Bijan. We also know we have to pay up for Drake London, who's going anywhere with a second round ADP. But the other guys on this offense, Kyle Pitts, normally people love Kyle Pitts. This year, people are afraid. The pass is making them afraid to draft Kyle Pitts, but this is not the Arthur Smith offense. This isn't the Marcus Mariota quarterback offense. This isn't the offense quarterbacked by a bunch of low-end signal callers who probably shouldn't even be starting in the NFL. This is the new look Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins, and we know what Kirk Cousins did for guys like TJ Hawkinson not too long ago. Hawkinson was operating as a top-flight fantasy tight end, one healthy with Kirk Cousins. So if you are not in on Kyle Pitts, I think you should be. He's going anywhere between the tight end 6 and tight end 7 off the board. In terms of my favorite players to stack in this offense, we can open up the draft with Bijan Robinson, but if you don't want to pay up and you want more stability with that first-round draft pick, I get it. Then you go draft a wide receiver. But coming back in the second round, I love drafting Drake London. Few rounds later, getting Kyle Pitts, and then you can build the rest of your team up before you solidify this stack with Kirk Cousins in the double-digit rounds of fantasy drafts. Jim?
My last team to stack in fantasy football contest is the Baltimore Ravens. Now, year 2 of the Todd Monken offense. Last year, it started out okay, but really after week 12, they started growing. And Monken is on record as saying he didn't install everything. It's hard to install a full offense from the ground. Year 2, we do see a lot of changes. The coaches get used to what the players do well, and they make these adjustments. And I expect that to continue. Now, so Lamar Jackson, and remember, the touchdown passes through the air started going up for Jackson after week 12. You could see the offense making, more sense. And Jackson's going as the quarterback 4. Now, that's an exactly fair price. Probably shouldn't be priced higher, not lower, but at his draft cost, he's a very strong fantasy option. And then Derrick Henry at running back. So we're going to have that RPO quarterback of Lamar Jackson. I talk about this all the time. That mobile quarterback freezes linebackers, keeps them on their heels instead of on their toes. If you're telling me Derrick Henry's going to be running downhill at linebackers that had to freeze for a nanosecond, good luck to those defenses. Henry broke his foot a few years ago. He's been an Iron Man otherwise. He's 30, shown no signs of decline. The broken tackle rate and the yards after contact were exceptional last year. Now, the offensive line in Tennessee last year was terrible, so Henry's numbers weren't great, but he still had over 280 carries, much better situation. Now, the offensive line, they did shuffle out a few pieces. They do keep Tyler Linderbaum and Ronnie Stanley. They should be okay enough, but now at receiver, Zay Flowers, wide receiver 25. I call him the Screen King last year. Caught a lot of short passes. I think his role could develop in year 2 as they find out other ways to use him. Late in the draft, Rashad Bateman was terrible last year. Wide receiver 78 in drafts. But John Harbaugh, the coach, has been adamant that Bateman is going to be counted on as a strong starter this year. Now, it's possible Bateman struggled with the offense, but a later dart at wide receiver, Devontae Walker. Again, this is in really deep leagues. Wide receiver 88, but we know the Ravens want to throw vertical. They really don't have a vertical threat. Devontae Walker could become that. So you take a late dart on him and see if that works. Finally, a tight end, of course, there's Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is commonly going off the board as the tight end 5. I have him as my tight end 2. There has been no decline in his per game numbers. He did miss time because of that hip drop tackle in week 11 last year. But that said, Andrews, again, in year 2 of this offense, is probably going to be the primary receiver, especially in those downfield targets. And then one more thing I want you to think about defensively. The Ravens lost the best coordinator maybe in the league, Mike McDonald. They lost Patrick Queen. They lost Jadeveon Clowney. This may not be an elite defense. The Ravens may have to score more points than we'd expect. So for the stack, favorite stack, pay at cost for Lamar Jackson. Definitely take the little discount on Mark Andrews. And I don't think you could get Flowers because he goes the same time Jackson and Andrews go. So as a late pick, either take your call on Bateman or the deep threat Walker, and there's your stack.